YouTube comments from a video titled, Where YO You Actually Want to Be When WW3 Starts. Part 5.
A stupid piece of shit Z50 wrote.
They want us all to be terrified that WW3 is coming. Anything they can keep us afraid of is a free pass for them to make whatever laws they want and completely avoid their due comeuppance. It can be guns, abortions, immigrants, religion, sexuality, race, crime, and that's just our domestic distractions.
At Atria's Naradan wrote.
This is probably one of the worst advice on where we'll be the safest in the case of when the WW3 happens sooner. Most of places nominated here are places that will without a doubt gain interest of both sides of conflicting countries in the war effort. A&D have very little to defend themselves from. Those islands you think of as safe will become NATO's military bases, and they can't refuse due to how small their own military power is. China and Russia will then go there to take them over from the NATO in the event that they manage to break through the first line of defense. New Zealand is probably the only small island in the Pacific aligning with the NATO that will be the safest due to its geographical location that benefit from having Australia as a barrier. Still, when nuclear missiles ain't launched by Russia and China, you best believe that New Zealand will be one of their target to wipe clean NATO's potential location for military base. So where will it be the safest in the event of WW3 happening anytime sooner rather than later? You'll find the safest places to be on Earth, with comfortable enough society to live in, at persistently non-bloc countries. Those countries that maintain neutrality and never openly side with either NATO or Russia/China will be amongst the safest places on Earth. Of course, that's assuming that they kept their neutrality and strong have enough power to maintain the neutrality. I'd personally stay in Indonesian regions, as it's big enough and have strong enough military power for both NATO and Russia/China to not want them to break their neutrality for the opposing side. It's a nation that could swing the war in favor of whichever side they decide to side with. Both NATO and Russia/China will likely want to keep countries like Indonesia to maintain their neutrality rather than risk making them join their opponent. There is a good reason why there is no U.S. military base in Indonesia, while some existing in its neighboring countries. US and NATO don't want to risk it by trying to push Indonesian government on allowing a foreign military base, especially considering Indonesian history with imperialism. Even suggesting a possible installment of foreign military base will risk a severe negative lashback from Indonesian people in general. That to say, that doesn't mean that there is zero risk. Because countries like Indonesia will become a target for intelligence operation aimed to frame the opposing side. Both NATO and Russia/China will likely send their agents to do anything to vilify their opponents. There will be incidents meant to frame each other as the culprit within Indonesian territories, with the goal of making Indonesia break their neutrality to join their side. As long as we stay away from capitals and tourism spots, that risk will be very minimal though. If WW3 happens, Indonesia will be one of countries that suffer the least from the war, assuming that it maintains its neutrality all the way through until the war ends.
At Milamali 300 wrote.
We wouldn't be fought like that. It would consist of nuclear bombardment, causing the air to become filled with deadly radiation leading to nuclear winter, and the loss of plants, animals and humans who don't have the luxury of being able to live in underground cities for a decade.
Krakoan Sinister wrote.
Considering how many people in Russia and China hate their governments with an intense burning passion, I see mass immigration to avoid serving, mass treason, and citizens with nothing to lose doing acts of sabotage and spying to help NATO dethrone their presidents and spread democracy.
At Jennifer McDonald 5432 wrote.
You don't really believe America has any allies now, do you? That poisonous place stands utterly alone. If anyone wiped out America, there'd be an enormous party, as long as it didn't wreck heaps of other countries, which it would, of course. Besides, America is the only country insane enough to start a war.
At Graham Laidlaw 252 wrote,
Another narcissistic American mouth flapping. Don't shit where you sleep, and that's all you've done in privilege, sucking on your own poor and the rest of the world. Your country has been the place that brought the world to more and more nukes. All other countries tried to de-escalate these weapons. That's what Kennedy wanted. Stay home, Americans, and sort out your own shit without exploiting other countries like that's within your rights, FFS. For example, even people from Taiwan. Consider it China, moron. From an Australian, feck off.
At Hroper 5964 wrote,
I like fighting because I'm good at it. I'm staying in Canada and look forward to carnage. I will travel freely around this shy planet, causing much more carnage. So happy.
as Zeb Massive wrote,
Step 1. Acquire millionaire status somehow or whatever. Step 2. Fiji. Think of it this way. Even if you ended up in Fiji or Tuvalu somehow, you're still going to be stuck in either on the poor side or the ridiculously wealth overlords of pecking orders.
at New Era 2025 wrote,
Oh, come guys. Ugh. You're telling me that you wouldn't want to live in a Mad Max world? The women want talk. You can have like 13, and they have to do what you say and like you. Don't have to follow laws and shite. I mean, come on, death isn't so bad if you think about it. Just 300 years ago, it was basically normal compared to today, which is now totally as backwards. But it's not so bad.
at Salam Peace 5519 wrote,
Most of Africa, South America, and parts of Southeast Asia will probably be safe as well, mainly because many of the countries are neutral and will probably not be involved in a WW3. Also, there are thinly populated areas with a lot of wilderness to hide in, and tropical climate to grow your own food year-round. Reaching these places would be very difficult if global air traffic shuts down, though. You can't drive from North America to South America because of the Darien Gap no roads. And if you try to flee from Europe to Asia by car, you need to go through either Iran or Russia, which are both going to be enemies of European countries. Entering Africa from Europe or Asia by car will also be difficult because you need to cross Israel and the Suez Canal.
at Brent Summers 7377 wrote,
New Zealand would only be self-sufficient in food production for a few weeks because the country relies on tankers containing diesel, petrol, and AV gas. NZ no longer has an oil refinery, so we'd be just as screwed as the rest of the world. Former PM Jacinda Ardern decided that having an oil refinery was a silly idea.
at Pigeon Mail 68 wrote,
What a joke. This is absolute garbage. Declaring neutral. What big player gives a shit about neutrality? New Zealand is a food bowl. Extremely important. 6 million people. All the Pacific Islands will be strategic to control.
at Tusk 3260 wrote,
From how unfriendly the US president has been with Canada lately, there is a high chance Canada would side with China, flipping the US strategy table on its head as Canada invites and supplies hundreds of thousands of Chinese into Canada to bypass all US defenses and attack from the north instead. And I say this as a Canadian myself. This is what happens when you threaten to annex your own ally. He joins your enemy.
Prius wrote,
Even better, Canada. A couple of minor US military bases. Just don't live in any Canadian cities close to the US border, which is most of them. But there are plenty of decent-sized small cities far away from the US and not worth targeting. My country, Canada, is now the greatest in the world, not our kooky neighbors to the south.
John Z6MC wrote,
Russian is not interested in any country, only its safety. The war in Ukraine started by Americans/Europeans and neo-Nazis in Ukraine. If anyone is going to start a nuclear war and end most if not all of humanity, is the warmongering Americans and its idiot supporters. Got it? Good. I am not Russian.
At Monster 10 Ife wrote,
We in Aotearoa, New Zealand see China as much of a threat. We have very close ties to China, and it's our major trading partner. Why are you focusing on China when the Middle East is likely to the place where things blow up as the USA empire continues to wither and Israel dies? Israel will not go quietly. Pakistan and Israel both have nuclear weapons.
At Monstercoin 8236 wrote,
In a nuclear war, fallout will be everywhere in the Northern Hemisphere. So even if nukes don't drop on your location, the atmosphere in the Northern Hemisphere will be toxic. Weather and the amount of landmass will mostly keep that toxic air in the Northern Hemisphere. Now the Southern Hemisphere, with much less landmass and much less targets to strike, it'll be much less toxic environment. I'm starting my move to NZ, roughly 5 hectares per capita. Not many people, far south away from wars, and rich fertile land. Get a nice acreage and build self-sufficient passive home away from cities. Because if WW3 erupts, nukes are going to fly. Best places are in the Southern Hemisphere.
At Danilo Silva, J9K3E wrote,
The deep interior of Brazil is actually safe and has all the resources you would need, better than Chile. The crime rates are high in big coastal cities, such as Rio de Janeiro, Salvador, and Recife. But in the deep vastness of the country's interior, there is no such issue.
At Abamelech Rivera 4904 wrote,
Just move to Brazil now and enjoy the fact that Brazil pretty much can self-contain during a World War III. Enjoy country is friends with Brazil, so no other country will attack it. On the contrary, they'll want to come and pay here instead.
King Nadio wrote,
Japan did turn up here in NZ in WW2. There were 2 sightings of them, but like everywhere else, we had bunkers all along our coastlines. NZ is safe because if the war goes hot, simulations show NZ will be the only agricultural land unaffected by radiation, which is what will most people. Also, we have more cows than sheep, but we have all foods you could think of here. We also have a very high firearm to population ratio. We also have huge underground bunkers in the South Island that the world richest have all bought for this scenario. So in this event, we will also get the world money and technological knowledge. NZ is by far the best, the only place safe in WW3, and it's paradise too. We won the lotto just being born here.
At Scott Anderson 3751 wrote,
Got one aimed directly at Southampton docks, about 2 minutes away, so I'm vaporized before I even know it. Never be scared of death and find it quite exciting TBH.
At Raymond Fredenberg 9388 wrote,
No, but it's definitely something I think about, and it's definitely not good, but you can't let it overwhelm you and there's nothing you can do about it at this point. Just stay aware and awake so if something ever happens you can prepare yourself and your family to do what you have to so you survive. But I will say this, it's definitely going to happen in our lifetime if you make it to, let's say, 87. I'm 43, that's 44 years. A lot is going to happen in 44 years. A lot has happened in 43.
Max wrote,
If you want to come to South Africa, CPT would not be a good idea. Other provinces like Northern Cape, which has the lowest population density, might be more ideal. Or neighboring countries like Botswana, which is landlocked, eliminating any risk of a naval attack.
At Vanessa Bowman 8143 wrote,
Nowhere is safe on Earth. You can run from a war, but others' dangers face you. Ask those who fled war recently and were murdered in a free country. Don't panic. Don't get into despair. The Lord is coming soon.
At Vanessa Bowman 8143 wrote,
The safest place to be is right in the center of the purpose of God. So whatever happens, you are secure. The Bible forewarned us about where the world is heading and why. I am not afraid of the mess we are in because I know how it all ends, and I am safe on earth or in heaven. So I encourage others to find Christ Jesus and also read the Bible.
At Keith Lowe 9037 wrote,
I'm staying here in little old NZ, nuclear-free, pollution-free, Islam-free, and far away from the hate that is infesting the world. Call it putting your head in the sand, but at least the sand is radiation-free.
At John Ryan 2193 wrote,
There is only one solution: a huge reduction in birth rates. But can anyone see Africa or India trying to convince their population to stop making babies? So, with resources getting thin on the ground, it is inevitable that violence will be the solution for the unwise. Another man-made pandemic is very likely to be the solution that the very wealthy will let loose on the world.
At Andrew Official wrote,
This is funny. An American making a video of WW3 showing America is safe. IDK if the self-diluted Americans realize they'll be the first to either attack or be attacked. Once they attack Canada for absolutely no reason, NATO will break, leaving those countries to be the first to then attack America, since they like attacking countries for absolutely no reason. Canada's making more deals with China than ever before, along with deals with the European Union. America's done. As for America, zero response from anyone.
Adair Mahoney 4M wrote,
What a numpy, every location on this will have fallout for years. Every location near or above the equator line will have fallout for years, especially in between mountains, as it can never get carried out to sea up over the moment. Mountains and will be there for centuries. So anywhere, with mountains on every side of it, are the very worst part of my house. Places to be and winds will keep everything blowing west on jets. Streams for generations, but only so far south. Before going into the oceans, so best places to go is as close to the penguins in South Antarctica as extreme water and natural weather conditions and the need for non-snow islands with adaptable vegetation and wildlife will allow finding smoke all area. The fine line between the two. So far enough south so not to get the fallout, but not too far south you freeze to Socha. Death or can't. Find food trees for wood wildlife and edible vegetation is key, not trying to find pits in bow. Between the entire center of the earth where all target countries are so all fallout will be blowing east to ground. West for years and years and years contaminating all water sources and killing all humans. Wildlife and eatable palms. Vegetation in its path, leaving only uninhabitable for all life land masses. From the very lowest European point to the North Pole across the planet, leaving the only possible places for survival. None fallout-covered lands. At least 800 miles below the very lowest point of Europe, so as near to the South Pole as possible where there are numerous islands to choose from but nothing near or above the equator line is correct. It's simply ignorant and not taking all things into account, and I am positioned certain and sure that if you listen to this guy and go to any of the places he suggests in a WW3 nuclear war event, then you're certainly dead within a short period of people. Time because hazmat suits only last 48 hours, and how many hazmat suits can you afford at 70 to 108 pounds each? Even those with bunkers will not survive near or above the equator line. Nowhere in the Western world will life room survive near or above the equator line. Only 800 miles further south than the lowest point of Europe will people in the West survive a nuclear war.
At Rockery P4G wrote,
I'm saving up as fast as I can for an Elon Musk one-way Mars SpaceX holiday special. However, if he's on it, I'll be giving the ticket away.
At Stedholder Harrington 9035 wrote,
Anyone notice how Canada never even got a mention in either direction, other than as a part of NATO? Would Canada be safe or not to wait out WWHI?
A fellow traveler too wrote,
10 Po NT56, New Zealand has gold, iron ore, oil, silver. I'm pretty sure it has none of these. Australia does, of course, ring the largest exporter of iron ore in the world.
At the Truth 4107 wrote,
You have some proof when Russia claimed it would be a 3-day military operation? I stopped watching after made it plain you don't know what you are talking about.
At RISXUPX wrote,
War is beyond idiotic. We all die eventually anyway, no matter what the outcome of war is. No one is leaving here alive. The US is screwed because they lost a majority of their allies.
At Robert White 1181 wrote,
In the event of a nuclear weapons exchange, the Southern Hemisphere would be much more survival, as the Northern Hemisphere would be in a nuclear winter for decades. I have lived in Ecuador for over 9 years. Anywhere south of Quito, Ecuador to Patagonia in Argentina would be safe and highly survivable. As firearms are common and legal in Argentina, I think it's probably the best option. Spanish isn't hard if you just talk to the locals.
At Runnerbean 5858 wrote,
I want to ask a crazy question relating to how religious beliefs impact people of little intellect. How is what this woman did different to what the Lori Daybell crime did? I am not saying that I believe this woman is like Lori, but a particular religion played a role in those murders as well. Part of her arguments were that her children are happy, etc. with God, and her justification for all the deaths, including those of older children, was that they were possessed by demonic powers and had to be killed to save their souls. Both of the main players in Lori's case have been sentenced to life in prison, and one of them received the death penalty. Religious fervor could be said to have played a role, but the actual person who killed the 4 main victims in this Daybell crime died under somewhat mysterious circumstances before Ellie realized what was happening in that case. People around this tragic event are treating the mother gently and with respect despite her demeanor, which is completely open and honest, and she is not attempting to hide what she has done. To an uninformed onlooker, she definitely seems to be completely delusional. I just find it odd that the two cases in some ways are similar because they arose, or at least appeared to be, the result of religious delusions, but in the Daybell case there were other much more sinister motives at play. Money, power, and sex, and an amoral brother who was willing to kill for his sister and her lover. In that case, he had possibly been the cause of her third husband's demise, and had even done time for his role in that death, but for some reason he had access to guns despite his role in a brother-in-law's death. He too was in collaboration with the pair now sitting in prison.
At Mike Warbin 5776 wrote,
It's not good, but better than the last 4 years. If only we could breed greed out of humans. If we are so bad, why does so many want to live here? I'm not worried. We all have too much to lose. As long as we keep a strong military and keep getting countries signing peace agreements, 11 so far, we're good.
At Jaden Trower 9743 wrote,
As a New Zealander, we can still be hit by missiles even though we are remote. And yay, hearing how little military we have is worrying, but we haven't really needed it, which saves us money. But if we needed more military, we would.
At Adele Ferreira S3Y wrote,
Now where will it be safe? I see you got South Africa in the green safe. Ha ha ha, I am a SA. You must be fooling yourself to think that's safe there. Ongoing racial issues non-stop. You can't even poke your head out your front door at night. All cities in SA are unsafe and overrun by drug lords, prostitution, hijackings. armed robberies, etc., 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 all hidden from the world. You can't even travel by car at night on any freeway. You won't make your destination. This is the sad, true reality in South Africa. So paint it red for what it is. Dark red because it's that bad.
At Justin Swanton 287 wrote,
Nuclear winter. Nah, and no global radiation poisoning either. Must ICBMs use hydrogen bombs that don't produce unstable isotopes? If you aren't in the blast zone, you should be relatively okay. The real problems are civil disorder, power, and food. Civil disorder likely to be a big deal in Europe and the US, all reading ramping up in those regions, but elsewhere too. Not having oil is a big deal, as the economy will largely grind to a halt. Food depends who are the big net importers. In this optic, no place is really guaranteed, as none on this list cover all three.
At Claudiag 8097 wrote,
I'm sure someone has already mentioned this, and perhaps it is even mentioned further into this video, but the peoples in the Pacific Islands are dealing with serious sea level rises. Anyone fleeing to Fiji or Tuvalu may be wise to reconsider the Pacific.
At Leah Greenell 5972 wrote,
Idiots like this content creator is why the fear-mongering and propaganda is the way it is in the world, and people feel alarmed. Putin a dictator. Last I heard there were open democratic elections. Oh, but wait, you are anti-Russian, anti-China bigoted propagandist, got to feed the narrative.
At Dorii02 wrote,
I'm pretty sure that with nukes in the North Pacific, the Ring of Fire will surely become extremely active, so Chile is not the place you want to be.
At just Nagitomo 13 wrote,
No bro, no safe place. The military will war with other military. The civilian will fought other civilian for survival too. Here example, that's my coconut. You know this my coconut.
Dardar wrote,
Radioactive fish, dark skies. WW3. The only people who have a chance of surviving are the sons of bitches who start WW3. The leaders will be sipping martinis while people burn. Ain't that lovely?
Bob wrote,
What about northern places in Canada like Nunavut, Yukon, or Northwest Territories? I don't think anyone would be bothered to capture these frozen holes. Unless there is some sort of strategic importance that I am not seeing. Though Canada is part of NATO, these places seem relatively much more remote.
At Tachar 33, Sid 3Z wrote,
Every small island will be jump-off points. Just like WWAI and the Aleutian Islands. We fought Japan on tiny islands everywhere in the Pacific, and this time being allies, Japan and the US would be stationed all over.
At Gene 4390 wrote,
They talk about living easy in a safe place. After a nuclear war, you would have a nuclear winter. Winter would not end for 2 to 8 years. No food could be grown. Starvation would be a bigger killer than the blasts.
At Kevin Selsit 5584 wrote,
Curious. After WIIT has ended and peace on Earth is taught in every school on Earth, how would you finish this sentence? The sun never sets on me. Empire. PS alien is not an acceptable answer at this time, but I'll let you know if that changes.
At RM QW3XZ wrote,
Even though China hasn't been in a war in ages, Americans and other Westerners think that China will be the country to start World WW3. I gather that would happen if the USA bombed China like how it bombed China's embassy in Belgrade or how it bombed Iran a few months ago. If China doesn't retaliate, then no WW3 and only China gets blown up. Therefore, it will depend on if China retaliates.
Diane Jarvis F10 wrote.
Thank you. This was very interesting and educational. Sadly, I'm too old, too ill, and too poor to take advantage of any of these locations. I'll just have to take my chance in highly vulnerable Britain.
Lara XC1MF wrote.
Okay, so, no nuclear then. Think I learned that back in the 80s. Wonderful being terrorist all over again. However, I love maps and questions like this. Ethics.
Metal Blaze 124 wrote.
Canada will be fairly safe outside the highly populated zones and military bases. Just go north for a while and no military in the world is going to care about that land. There's plenty of resources, but controlling it would basically mean you have already defeated the US military, and at that point just go further north beyond an ice road.
It's Infallible wrote.
Why are Russia and China belligerent powers? Taiwan hasn't been invaded. In fact, when was the last time China went to war? Russia invaded Ukraine only after years of warnings. How many countries has America bombed in the last 35 years? More than China, Russia, Iran, or Russia, Korea put together. In fact, there is not a single country on Earth that has bombed as many nations as America. The main source of global conflict, all for power and resources.
Berlin Morris 3701 wrote.
Egypt is not in the Middle East, it is in Africa. If that area is the Middle East, where is the Middle West, Middle North, or Middle South if Egypt have a border with Saudi Arabia, and Egypt is on the African continent, is Saudi Arabia on the African continent too? Look at the land of Saudi Arabia and how it almost hugged the African continent, but they put it in Asia and call it the Middle East. Middle East of where?
Maximk wrote.
Hilarious that you would describe a chain of islands adjacent to China's coast and thousands of miles away from the United States as the United States' first line of defense against China. That would be like describing Cuba as Russia's first line of defense against the United States.
Authenticity Hawking wrote.
You forgot a few factors, for example, gender factor. Females would be far more valuable in the start of the new slave trade than switching to males for rebuilding. Nuclear fallout factor. Just look at the global circulation map. The safest place to be is in a hole by yourself instead of being stabbed because you ate the last piece of chocolate.
Mandrews 1245 wrote.
Makes me laugh that the white safest place is USA, the country that threatens all and has more wars fighting than any other country in the world. Won't they be shocked when BRICS Plus decide USA must become the target? Like swatting a bug before it bites you.
Rips 23 wrote.
Your history is way off. Don't know where you live, likely in one of the victor nations. The Third World War was fought decades ago in the 60s and 70s. We don't like to talk about it because it is such a criminal enterprise. But ask anyone in the Third World about how their economies became subjugated and all their productive capacity redirected to provide for the First World.
Jensen Hillbrook 2968 wrote.
We need more Western people in Chile, especially USA and Europe. They would make the country even more developed, and Chile has a diverse range of climates to build modern cities.
Heffernan wrote.
I'd be in my new bug house right to my neighbor's big house where Theb Week was actually the elite. Tension is felt by us and the elite scrambling and politicians gripped with favors and power they can't control. A secret intelligence-y, older intelligence that knows how to keep us in this loop viruses vaccinations. Assassinations when we get to kick power back, democracy, marine democracy, communism, sick of them lying. Everything, I mean everything, use fears of problems that don't even involve us funding WWR and killing is what we have come to.
At Mandalorian Crusader 6699 wrote,
Putin can't even take Ukraine? Who is on life support by over 50 countries in terms of money, arms, mercs. US could not even take one tiny Vietnam, and they had hell of a lot fewer to assist them, 3 countries. So US stopping China in front of China is about as fictional as idea that Russia won't nuke NZ. They specifically said they will, and have missiles that go around the planet a few times. I understand you need to blow on that MSM penis, but overestimating yourself and underestimating others is exact reason why we might get WW3 in the first place.
At Johnny Botryte 6584 wrote,
We can all take a very big fatal hit WAR. We're all in range of WAR. The unexpected when least expected. On a day just like today. First strike. Like a thief in the night 1000,767,999 views. Google. Johnny Botryte. Russian state TV threatens nuclear strike on UK and warns of radioactive tidal wave when lightning strikes. SKYNETISTHE virus. British commander, the politicians are in hiding. Something huge is brewing in Europe. WW3 alert. Putin issues dire threat to the West. Two-wheeled smokers. Will 666 smoke you do anyone's dirty work? No Black Panther Sandringham serial killer black wizard /terrorist /dis shooter /heal 1000,767,999 views. Google Johnny Botryte.
At Matria wrote,
Russia? You kidding, right? They are already collapsing now as we speak against little old Ukraine. They will be the first to be taken over by other countries, mostly likely NATO.
At Eric B6Z wrote,
Does anybody know this? If you get blown up by nuclear weapons, does it destroy the soul that is supposed to be in the human body? Or does it survive and move on to hell or heaven or Valhalla? Answers, please.
At Phoenix NL72 Dega wrote,
18 Greenland? Really? THE place that Trump desperately wants to get his greedy hands on due to the natural resources and oil it has. Not to mention its strategic value as an outpost for radar, which is why there is a US military base already there.
The Star Sites wrote,
You are overlooking the Reyes of the oceans. Punta Arenas, Cape Town and FAI, to name a few, will soon day possibly sooner than you think, like parentheses 2026 R0 parentheses 2027. Be underwater and bombs won't be the thing that kills.
Herman Patty wrote,
I think that the Bill Gates and Forsky working with the World Economic Forum will release virus and bacterial weapons that the Wuhan lab cooked up for them and transferred to the biological labs in California. Don't worry. Governor Newsom's will have the cure from his friends in China.
A Scorcher 92 wrote,
What about Ireland? This kind of video never looks at it. Ireland is kind of unique. Not part of NATO, neutral. No US or other foreign military base, friends with everyone. East, South, and West, but avoids getting too cozy with either. And countries don't seem to want to lose our friendship, potential for food self-sufficiency if we put our minds to it. Downsides. It's vulnerable if anyone nukes the UK. Russia made a cartoon joke about nuking the UK, and it disappeared Ireland fund the map too. We said, hey, we're not in the UK, and they said, lol, we don't care. That said, They invaded our sea space, and political criticism didn't help, but when our fishermen had a chat with them, they were like, okay, cool. Accidental bombing on the way to the UK is possible. Hitler did that. We were one of the safest places in WW2. Unlike Switzerland, we had the freedom of being on the Atlantic coast so could travel.
A Famers Girl, N5C wrote.
Don't run, fight. See, we have a book that say what is going to happen, just adding to the Bible, and we know what is coming. Some things already came true. But the tie is getting tight very quickly. So if they say we are not in WW3 yet, believe me, we are already in it.
Koiterab wrote.
I'll be happy at home, thanks. Rather get fried at home than somewhere else, and living within 3 miles of the most powerful radio transmitters in UK. That'll happen soon enough.
At Tanya Welsh 5825 wrote.
Well, this is a stupid video seeing as no one cares about the states anymore due to the orange filth who has angered every NATO country. And wasn't he the puke who said he wanted to leave NATO? Yeah, sorry to bad.
Stephen Caldwell 838 wrote.
I'll be in a secluded fishing village in Bahia Sur, Mexico. It's where my wife, daughter, and I spend our summers surfing and fishing. It's located far out on a peninsula inside of a bay, 2 hours drive to the nearest town.
A Pamela Baugh 2008 wrote.
I live next to a military base and expect bombs would hit there. Those islands sound good until you realize they are volcanic. So, nuclear power blasts cause volcanic disruptions.
At Michael N9D6P wrote.
We mow the largest crop on the world 16x per year and throw it away. So we don't have 2 billion cows and 500 gallons per person every year of milk, cheese, cream cheese, sour cream, cottage cheese, ice cream, butter, and yogurt. We mow and throw away 1 po and 15 billion acres of grass 16x a year in the US. And we wait all year for 1 crop of corn and 1/10 the acreage. We mow and throw away what could be $590 billion a year in dairy. So we, instead of 1/10 of our potential, pay to throw away dairy cow food and pay 10x more for it instead of making $1 worth $10. Cows can live a long, nice life, wherever comfortable. We'll freight frozen grass to them. After slowly freezing for maximum cell rupture, maybe it's more digestible to the cattle. Your entire neighborhood gets mowed, say 10 a.m., 30 lawn mowing companies show up. 30 million Americans are in business making $65K a year to start until we get 10x our cows going. They mow in sealed cab, tinted window lawn mowers, and there's 2 new inventions. 1. Mini leaf sucker machines pick up grass piles and dump it at the street for the big city leaf sucker trucks that pick up all the grass mowed in your neighborhood at 8 o'clock. Picked up at 10:30. Then lawnmowers are already on another street. The leaf sucker trucks dragging refrigeration units pick it up. Semi-truck drop off empty refrigeration units along the main drag and then turn around and pick up the full ones, and then it goes to rail cars or semi-trucks, and they go to a freezer facility. The next invention is a set of steel chewers that chew up the grass so it isn't sharp from being cut by the lawn mower. It goes on a conveyor and sprayed with water before it goes to a cooler to be frozen, then shipped somewhere nice where the cows would like to live. Then hire all the people that sing songs over cows to take care of them. At the end of each feeding session, she gets a bowl of ice cream. When they don't want to be a cow anymore after a nice long life, she gets a fentanyl ice cream. Same with hens, if they duck their head, they get plucked and tortured alive. Fentanyl, it's cheap and easy to make, and the most compassionate, easy way to go, and how every animal should be put down at the end of their life, and most humans. If we can freeze grass in unpasteurized milk slowly for maximum cell rupture, and then thaw it and ferment it in lemon juice, you might be able to make the largest crop on the earth humanely digestible. You could become a bodybuilder of grass. We can send salt water straight to homes from the ocean, stream distill ocean water at your counter, and France can have an ocean river full of fish. We'll have salt already in the water and can put salt on more freezing roads. And in California, you can send the entire river to the farmers. Just use a steam distiller for salt-free water, and if you don't have enough little ones, you can have large ones installed at grocery stores. What you can bring a 5-gallon glass-lined jug and fill it up. We can even trench new rivers, and even make a gear canal or river that turns gears for power. We need a video game where all the 5-year-olds will solve all the world problems in a week. Imagine a game where a little girl is crying and pointing to the dry French River. A kid can click on the ocean and drag it in. If she can't drag the ocean, and she can send a comment to a team of world problem solvers. Next thing you know, game is programmed to allow the ocean to be clicked on and to fill the dry rivers. Then the game shows all the ocean fish in the river and what to do with all the extra salt they don't put in their water anymore. Send it to freezing roads. Everybody's happy. Kids will think of things grown-ups won't. Could you imagine if the world did an experiment and awesome women took in orphans from 6 months, 1-year-old from every country and raised them, fed them vegetarian, but also gave them eggs, milk, cheese, etc. Taught them math, how to read and write, but let them teach you instead of indoctrinating them. Look how they would love each other. Give them enough sandwiches to share with the dog, and he will lick them, they will laugh, and everybody's best friends. Let's do this world right, and maybe one day there'll be a global problem-solving team. Kids will solve your problems by the time they're 18, as long as you don't tell them for 18 years that they can't change the world. We can even trench new rivers, and even make a gear canal or river that turns gears for power. You could literally put a fan blade gear off of a man-made ocean water creek, turning a washing machine gear which spins another and is a clothes dryer. The washing water goes into a sand filter bed where it layer evaporates or stains down into the ground. An actual clean system. Could be fun on a nature-powered cabin, and you could even heat and chill your home using solar radiant heat or switch to geothermal to cool. For every 50 churches, we could use 49 for egg hatcheries. Homeless shelters, who knows? Actually, 84 churches in 2-hour time slots could all use one building all week. Most people that go to churches are stay-at-home moms, young children, the retired, the unemployed. Instead, 50 empty buildings are air-conditioned and heated all week for nothing but 20 people show up one day a week? A gross waste of resources while people are freezing in the winter, while they're poor people who show up once a week trying to figure out how to help the poor, needy, and suffering. Maybe not the government, but private companies which pay all the taxes, buy them up, and put empty buildings to good use. 3 billion to 4 and 2 billion people don't even want to be here, and the world is doing another depopulation war. When the sick and suffering at sea would say thanks for a take-home opioid drink with a micro serial number, and that'd be like 300 to 400 years of 60 to 80 world wars, depopulations at another 50 million each, in just letting everyone get compassion and a drink that wants to leave instead. 1/3 of the world is starving to death. 5% need bones. 5% need organs they can't or don't want to have replaced. 5% terminally ill. 5% chronic pain. 5 to 10% never wanted to be here anyway. And so 45 to 65% of the planet could get out of here with a fentanyl drink. And everyone, when they want to go, can have a party in their own home and have a drink, go to sleep, and never have to wake up again. Instead, they kill the grandchildren in war and leave the elderly suffering in pain management. For $24,000 US, we could have sent 2 kilos of fentanyl, 4 and 4 pounds, less than a gallon of milk, for 1 million people in Russia and Ukraine who don't want to be sick and terminally ill anymore, instead of killing 1 million of their boys and girls. And 19,000 Ukrainian children have been kidnapped by Russia to be rape victims that suffer daily death. You can't murder someone guilty of murder or rape, which is worse than murder. In this hijacked country, they send heroes to jail for murder for killing rapists. On 17 different jobs I heard there's too many Varegas, take 'em for pizza. Kill all white people. Pinch Negroes, throw 'em on their grill, pop their brain for some juice. A handful of people sold out the US for white powder to an invading force that said to kill all of the cops. To bribe a government is subversion and act of war. Then they would kill you, starve you, make you their slaves. You're paying 400% more for everything for 20 plus years and are out 21, all expense theft paid vacation for 21 people for 21 years and have nothing after building this country, and then free housing while you lose your house and pull out your own teeth while you build their family. They don't pay for and free housing, more free dental thieves and breeding off of you in free housing, and your family has to pay 4x 9x more for food. 1,000 are coming over a day in 14 underground tunnels and trucked, and there's only 700 miles of fence up. Over 2,000 miles need 7 razor wire deployment trailers going 20 miles per hour in the 8-hour shifts, and the entire border is razor wire shut in 24 hours. You need 2 cargo helicopters to slinky drag the razor wire over the mountainous region. Then continue to install your wall over the wire with a lull, boom, etc. And then strap the razor wire to the permanent wall. The military is walking razor wire out when the government has razor wire rapid deployment trailers. I've been down here 10 years. 2 gods were having a party in the cosmos and turned up his pharmaco too much, and the bright light burned the other god and got fire in his will, and that block burned. He feared what he willed and willed what he feared, being reversed. Since the seed of evil jumped out being in a fire, it burned down a universe and made the spirit physical. This whole universe exists in what is one block of God, in whose spirit you exist. He got reversed in souls, reversed due to incorrect brain signals from human Nephilim cannibalism. There were 10,000 of these planetaries. You're in the last one. You could save the world from 300 depopulation, world war again. The world's need take-home micro cereal number fentanyl opco drinks, and half the world would be out of here. Ends me to finally. That's like 400 years of 80 world wars at 50 million each for 79 us, and they'd make 80B out of 80 million. Americans that don't come in for 1 PO and T5M and state aid or a mint uncle, same backdoor reimbursed private insurance changing money. And they make 1 PO and T2 1,000 of the guy and his daughter got 300K life insurance money instead of forcing him to be here 5 more years and make 675K, making him suffer and torturing him in rat healthcare while they blow the grandkids up in an Islam entertainment war and put them in angel chairs next to the suffering grandparents that don't want to be here for the next 10 years either. How awesome dollar shoals are.
And Mosey Hawk wrote,
I think I'd head for somewhere this video doesn't even mention, like Malawi. Agriculturally based economy. Nobody is going to want anything but food after the bombs have done their job.
Adelmarie 100 wrote,
The belligerent country is the USA. NZ's greatest asset in a war is the fact that it is nuclear-free. I disagree with your premise that both Russia and China are expansion's tendencies. You're projecting the West's tendencies on them.
Abrakari wrote,
I'm gonna be in my new house in northeast Thailand. The bottom of it is my food storage, and I live upstairs. Life will be good until it turns bad. Life is too short to have to worry about the world.
At 1:55 Gerard wrote,
A terribly silly video. Tons of assumptions and much misinformation. The narrator seems obsessed on Fiji, and because Fijians turn kava into alcohol is one of the good reasons to select it as a safe haven.
Have Happiness wrote,
A nuclear winter will last 100 years or more. No sun penetrating our atmosphere. Nothing on the surface of planet Earth can exist, and this idiot is talking about fishing and coconuts? Sandwich.
WW3 wrote.
I think they won't waste missiles without a nuclear warhead if they shoot them around the globe. So we're fucked no matter where we are, quick dying or slow.
Adam Lee 8052 wrote.
Here in Africa, we have different troubles. Unstable governments, genocide of ethnic and religious minorities, no food, water, health security. I, myself, am an ethnic and religious minority. To us, genocide is simply inevitable. As a Protestant, there's the constant threat of the insanely violent Muslims. Plus, China owns Africa. There's just Chinese everywhere. They're robbing us blind. Very racist people.
At Peter Moore 5163 wrote.
I live on the island of Mauritius. It is about 1,500 miles east of the South African coast in the Indian Ocean. Warm weather year-round, lots of fish and tropical fruit. Lots of deer and boar. No military. However, it has a fairly large population of 1.2 million. I wonder how it would do.
A surviving wrote.
3157. The electricity company is called Eskom, not Exim, and yes, they are very inefficient since they hire based on race, not on ability, and their prices are extremely high, because a few of the working people pay for lots and lots of slackers that steal electricity.
@DF 9064 wrote.
China isn't attacking anyone. Quit projecting US proclivity toward war upon others. And your thinking is outdated when it comes to the US having allies. As things are going, the US's only ally will be Russia. Almost all target for nuclear weapons are in the Northern Hemisphere. Many bombs equals fallout. It also results in roving bands of lawless, hungry people without a government after the strikes, which means the Southern Hemisphere is where you'll survive. Tuvalu can't grow enough food and much need to be imported. In fact, none of your icy picks can grow enough food for its people. They depend upon imports.
At Jim Smith 556 wrote.
Another video that's a waste of time. Nobody will survive an all-out WW3. Those that survive the first days, months will just suffer. This video is beyond ridiculous. Choosing tiny islands for possible safe places is irrelevant. A couple of dozens plane loads of people will overwhelm their resources in space. And how are you going to get there anyway? A few people might pull up stakes now and bug out. This video just wasted a precious half hour I'll never get back.
Akar S6X6I wrote.
Colombia is the most self-sufficient nation on Earth. But guess what? Colombia has ice too. This dummy thinks US citizens have visa-free travel. I'm American. I planned 10 years ago. Expats are flooding to Colombia and other American countries south of the hemisphere. Only 23% of US citizens have passports, and guess where ground zero is? Unless you have land or military in Colorado Springs.
A GI4 DTV 230 wrote.
Do you actually want to survive this? Because survival doesn't just mean being alive. It means scavenging for food, fighting over clean water, avoiding radiation zones, dealing with no medicine, no power grid, no working governments, and everyone around you turning desperate, violent, or both. It means watching society unravel in front of you. Because surviving isn't heroic. It's not explosions or adventure. It's giving up everything that makes life worth living. Coffee with friends? Gone. Watching a movie? Gone. Concerts, malls, laughter, normalcy, gone. Survival in a post-apocalyptic world means constant fear, hunger, and vigilance. It means living minute by minute, stripped of joy, stripped of safety, stripped of humanity. The question isn't where you want to be. It's, Do you really want to survive?
At Bless 5648 wrote,
If it's a nuclear bomb, then the world is total wipeout of humanity, as it will cause nuclear winter for hundreds of years. No one will survive. Only the rich in their bunker will survive.
And Mr. PM4RZ wrote,
God has a solution already for everything. It's in the Bible. The more often you read it all the way through, the more you learn. After studying it thoroughly, you realize why God has a solution already for everything.
And Mazvek wrote,
Don't have to watch the video. I want to be at home, which hopefully is also near enough ground zero that I won't even know what happened. No interest in living through that sh*T.
At LuckyMeD1H wrote,
Only 3 countries know CONSEI destroy world and humanity. Russia, China, North Korea, and shame on their people fearing and allowing their president to be a demon.
At FrankBoff1260 wrote,
Why all the crap on World War III lately? And aside from that, let me break the bad news. Over time, the death rate for every living thing is 100%. The only possible exception to this might be the immortal jellyfish.
Casey_Wombat Australia wrote,
Don't go to Tuvalu. The island is sinking fast, and the people have already found asylum in several countries. Not a good place to hang out for long.
At Jackie Hymans wrote,
Just saying, it is Europe that is kicking Russia for war all the time. Poetin said to have a World War III would be insane. There would only be losers coming from that. Europe is taking in one land after the other, closing in on the Russian border for years. That was not to happen. And with Ukraine, NATO could put armies and weapons at 10 km from the Russian border. That is why Poetin had to start the war, to protect his own people, and the people living in the Ukraine that do not want to be part of Europe, and that were threatened by Zelensky's side. We hear a lot of propaganda that Poetin is the bad guy, but it is the people that want the New World Order that are behind all of this. Poetin is in their way. He said about that we already had that here, we don't want that anymore. He wants nothing to do with the New World Order. He wants lands to be so everine.
A Gary Woolard X6GJ wrote,
Well, if the United States has an extremely super top secret EMP capacity in a top secret satellite, this would neutralize any intercontinental ballistic missile coming our way. Some know what his EMP is about, and probably most don't know what EMP is about. If you have watched Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis radio talk show for years, you should know what EMP is.
At Carla Garrett 8584 wrote,
The way England, France, and Spain took over, China, Germany, and the Emirates have purchased lots of lands in Africa and South America. It's a huge slice of the information you need to remember when thinking about power changes.
At Boosted Autos 7609 wrote,
Correction, the South African power manufacturer and distributor is called ESKOM. It is not called EKSOM. ESKOM is a state-owned business that is severely neglected and under-maintained because of state corruption and nepotism in state-owned institutions. This negligence and corruption has caused ESKOM to not be able to keep up with the growing demand in SA and has enforced rolling blackouts since the outbreak of COVID in 2020.
At John Resalvato 5838 wrote,
Go to a public library and sit on the steps. You will have all the time in the world to read. Just don't drop your glasses. Then you will realize all the time in the world won't matter if you can't see what you're reading in the books. The Twilight Zone has a lot to say about WW3. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. It's all the books in the world, all the food, all the water. It's a hopeless situation for everyone, no matter where you live. Radiation will finish you off.
John Salvato 5838 wrote,
The only place I want to be during WW3 is on the moon so I could enjoy the fireworks show. Relaxing with a hot dog and a cold beer.